Hey, it's me. I just wanted to pop on and say that I apologize for not getting this video up on Tuesday. I'm actually uploading it the following day, Wednesday morning. Hopefully that's okay with you. It took longer than I expected it to take to get all the research together and to put something together that really summarized just how evolutionary African American women have been in the literature world. There was a lot of information. I'm trying to figure out what to put in it, what not to put in it. It just took a little bit longer. So wanted to say I'm sorry about that. Also, for those of you who are reading along with me this month, the month of March, let me know down below. I'm reading Homegoing and I'm loving it so far. Let me know if you are also reading this month. I will let you get back to the video because that's what you came here for, right? I'll see you soon. Bye. Because it is Women's History Month, a month dedicated to celebrating the contributions of women to history and society overall, I would love to talk about how Black women specifically have played a huge role in the shaping of the culture, history, and feminism through their writing. Over the years, several Black female writers have continued to share their outlook on the world using their words, providing a different perspective, one that was not always seen, heard, or welcomed in the literature sphere. Phyllis Wheatley, for example, the first African American author of a published book of poetry, proved that Black people could indeed write poetry. Black female writers who came later, such as Zora Neale Hurston, Maya Angelou, Toni Morrison, Angela Davis, and Octavia Butler, continue to provide a refreshing take on society, humanity, activism, the feminist movement, and the different facets of society from the Black woman's perspective. As Black women's place in American society has changed over the centuries, so have the topics of their literature and the ever-growing praise for the use of their words in the classics we all know and love. Let's start from the beginning. Spiritual narratives were published in the late 18th and early 19th century. This is when Black women's words really made their mark in history. These spiritual narratives created the earliest narrative form for Black people. African American women were approaching a difficult task during this time: the intersectionalities of being Black, a woman, and religious in early America. The writings by these women are special because not only do they offer historical context, but actual literary tropes as well. Unfortunately, these spiritual narratives are oftentimes left out of the study of African American literature because some scholars have deemed them historical or sociological documents, despite their importance to understanding African American literature as a whole. Without Harriet Jacobs' autobiography, Incidents in the Life of a Slave Girl, and other personal narratives, how would we possibly know what happened in the past? These narratives are key to understanding what African American life was like centuries ago. The first 2 decades of the 20th century, racial injustice and other violence inspired a literature of protest. From 1920 to 1940, the Harlem Renaissance opened the door for African American literature and art. It was a time of flowering for social thought and culture, but the Harlem Renaissance is best known for the literature that came out of it. Zora Neale Hurston is one of the most influential Black women to come out of the Renaissance, with satires, anthologies, fiction, and nonfiction novels discussing contemporary issues present in the Black community. The Harlem Renaissance marked a major turning point for African American literature, but it was not the only one. The Black arts movement, which took place in the 1960s and 70s, gave rise to many amazing poets. This movement was inspired by the civil rights and Black power movements. It was created in response to the turbulent socio-political landscape at the time. While activists were using their voices to fight for the end of segregation, Black writers were doing the same with their words. Poets such as Gwendolyn Brooks, Nikki Giovanni, and Sonia Sanchez experimented with poetry, drawing on African American vernacular, songs and sermons, incorporating jazz, the blues, and rhythmic techniques to emphasize their words. The Black arts movement is credited with motivating a new generation of poets, writers, playwrights, and artists. By the 1970s, African American literature reached the mainstream with Black writers receiving accolades such as bestseller titles and Pulitzer Prizes for their writings. Their essays, short stories, poems, and novels were now being accepted by academia as a legitimate genre of American literature. The women's rights movement in the 60s and 70s and its impact on the consciousness of African American women in particular helped fuel a Black women's literary renaissance. Writers such as Toni Morrison, Alex Haley, and Alice Walker are credited with helping to promote and define African American literature as a genre during this time period and inspired a generation of younger Black female novelists, many of whom have went on to win the Pulitzer Prize. And the evolution continues.